Thank you, Pastor TBM. Thank you so much. Good evening. Good evening. Greetings, everyone, in the wonderful name of Jesus. It's an honor and it's a privilege for me tonight to come on this platform just to spend time on this platform, and enjoy your suitable Mondays, with you. So it's a privilege for me to be here, and also understanding, acknowledging, and also appreciating the time that you are affording me tonight. It could be, you could give this platform to anyone more, any better person, but you afforded me this opportunity. I do not take it light, Pastor TBM, to be afforded this moment, and I trust the Lord that we will utilize it effectively and productively towards our marriages. Hallelujah. As she has already introduced me, my name is Legodi, and born again, and I am married to Mapula Legodi, blessed with 2 kids, 2 boys. That's me, and the author of the book, Who Wears the Pants, where I wrote a book that speaks about 14 kinds of husbands, 14 kinds of husbands. In the 21st century. There are 14 kinds, actually there are more than 14, but I wrote about 14 kinds of husbands. And the likelihood is that everyone who's on this platform married, your husband falls within one of those 14 kinds of husbands. So it might help you to check out the book, to get a copy, and then check the type of husband that you have and how to relate better. The intention of the book is to give you the tools that you need. It's just a diagnosis of marriage and relationships, particularly leaning towards husband, and also give you the tools on how to nurture your marriage and steer it in the right direction, so that we can build beautiful marriages, and not only beautiful marriages, but lasting marriages, so that we can have that forever and ever locked down. So tonight, however, I want to just want to speak on a subject that I found when I do marriage counseling. This is a subject that I found so much prevalent amongst many of the people that come for counseling. Is an issue of managing change. I've summarized it as an issue as managing change in marriages, that is a subject that I will be unpicking. Let's mute. If you are not on the floor, you can just mute. God bless you. Managing change is what I'll be talking about. But with that, I need to give a brief background of a concept and an idea of marriage, which I think will help us to deliberate further as we continue. Because the question will be, what is marriage? I know on this platform it has been exhausted. I know you've read plenty of books. I know, this generation reads a lot, so you've exhausted this. And I'll just give my own perception of what marriage is. And my perception of what marriage is simple. Marriage to me is a decision. Number 1, marriage to me is a decision. Number 2, marriage is a decision to stick with your decision. That's me. That's how I define marriage. Marriage is a decision, and also a decision to stick with that decision. That is marriage for me. All these others, when 2 people fall in love, when 2 people are attracted to one another, when 2 people are compatible, and all these things, over the years, I've cleaned them and filtered them out of the idea of what marriage is. And I'm left with this one, and so far it is doing well. It's the idea that marriage is a decision, and a decision to stick with that decision. For me, that's how I will define marriage. So with that said, is that number 1, it says to you that when we enter into marriage, we are entering with a forever and ever mentality. I know Pastor TBM has another platform called Grow Old Together. I know there's a magazine with that regard, and another platform, Grow Old Together. So the idea behind every marriage should be growing old together. The idea behind marriage should be forever and ever. That should be first. That is the first line that we need to establish. We are not, I'm told that this platform is for born again Christians, mostly born again Christians. In our space, Sabazalwani, the issue is there's no room and space for mjolo or date or casual dating, right? So we harshly discourage that. As a pastor, I harshly discourage that also. So as a result, the concept of marriage amongst Bazalwane in the previous years, in previous generations, in the 70s and the 80s, was a clear path, whereby when you reach a certain age, which would be maturity will be determined by age based on the context or historical context of the time. Based on the 70s and the 80s, our parents by 18 years old, they were ready to be married. They were ready to marry our parents when they were 18. When they were 18, they were ready. Why? Because historically speaking, particularly dealing with black people, with all the apartheid issues. Remember also our education back then in the 70s. If you don't know, maybe if you have not asked your parents, around the 70s and 80s, one can actually effectively complete school, if I may put it that way, loosely put. I can complete school grade 8, even grade 7, in fact, from grade 7, you are considered very much knowledgeable and educated, and then there will be grade 10, which was grade 10, not metric, grade 10, which is standard 8 of my time, now is grade 10. That was the highest back then. So you understand that their schooling was also shorter. And also, those who reached grade 10, there were also quite few, meaning a lot of them around grade 7 or below, they already completed their so-called school. So as a result, they are already working. For 13, 14, 15-year-olds were already working. They were working in the kitchens. They were garden boys. They were doing all these things. And by the time they reached 18, they've lived. The 70s and the parents in the 70s and 80s, by the time they reached 18, they've lived. They've seen it all. They've lived. These are fully blown, matured people. That is why they will get married at that particular age. So, hence, which explains why you were born at whatever age you were born when your mom was 20 or 19. So now it seems like a bit of controversy and scandalous. Then it was normal. So I'm just trying to give a big background so that we understand why we are where we are today. So fast forward, so meaning if Bazalwane were marrying at 18 back then it means also there was little or nothing regarding experimenting on the dating scene or in the dating scene. There was no experimenting, highly discouraged. But also there was no time for that. You are working and you get married. You are in school and then you get married. You are Mzalwane, you get married. Then fast forward, then we go to the 90s and the 90s and the early 2000s, and then the median age for marriage increased a bit, and then we go to Bazalwane now getting married around 25. 25 there was a time whereby 25 was a golden age. 25 was a golden age. And then Bazalwane will get married at that particular time. Still, then now schooling has increased towards matric, now grade 12. So almost 18 years of your life, you are in a schooling system. Then from then, you are ready to work in the 90s. You are ready to work with matric in the 90s. A lot of our parents worked with matric, and then a few of them will go to tertiary. So the posts kept on shifting in terms of the right time when one can be ready. And then come the late 2000s, and now whereby now there's tertiary, there's honors degrees, there's all these things. Now the Bazalwane believe that you must secure all these things first, and then after that you are ready for marriage. And when you are done with securing all these things, you are in your late 20s or you are in your early 30s. Then we are where we are today. So in all these things, you can see that the age kept on increasing. But the initial age was that of that 18-year-old ready to be married. No room for dating, no room for mjolo. When I'm saying mjolo, I'm referring to casual dating, the casual dating with no direction. There's no room, because at 18, when the moment your body starts to tell you that you are old enough, you must experiment sexually, already you are ready to marry. You understand? But now all these things marriage are done up until people reach 30 or early 30s. Your body has been telling you for 12 years. At that time, Mzalwane, you are single. Your body has been telling you for 12 years that you must get married. You need to be active sexually, and you have been fire on you. Fire, discipline, whatever we call them, for 12 years. What I'm saying is that today it is complex for people to get into marriage, particularly Bazalwane. Why? We are having a lot of experienced Christians, single Christians. That's the problem. We are having a lot of experienced single Christians today. Remember, what used to be seen in the 80s is not a sin today. Going to a movie with a brother while you are not born again, while you are not married as a sister, used to be a sin. Now you greet us at the malls with your boyfriend going to watch a movie, and we greet you without condemning you. It is so normal for whatever reason, I don't know. But back then it was a sin. So things have changed. So now we get people now who are ready to marry or get married in their late 20s, in their early 30s, with a lot of experience. That's where we are, which leads to my subject of managing change in marriage. So we are having all this experienced people, even those who have never been, I think I can speak plainly on this platform, even those who have never literally engaged in sexual intercourse, they are also experienced in their own right. Because remember, the fact that you are a virgin does not necessarily tell us that you are impure sexually. I think you must know that, right? Most of the people who are virgins also, they know a lot about sex, even more than those who have been sexually active. There is internet. There is a lot of things. Virgins they know all the what's that movie? What 50 Shades of Grey or something? They know all the trilogy of that movie. They've seen them. They know all these things. People are single. They know more about sex than even those who are married. That is the issue that we are having now. So we're having this generation that is loaded with a lot of information. And now this generation wants to enter into marriage. That is why you are blessed to be married today, because it is now becoming difficult for single people to get married, particularly within Christianity. It is becoming so difficult. We are having a lot of people with overloads of experience, people with fears because of economic conditions. There are so much fears and economic inequalities, so many fears. So as a result, people are scared. That is why you wonder why people now some are mid-30s, some are late 30s and still single, and they are comfortable. They are not worried. Why? Because it is now becoming more difficult for Bazalwane to enter into marriage. But in the meantime, the body is not young anymore. The body has been complaining while you are 13, 14. The body has been telling you that I want to have sex during all that particular time, and you have been applying all the disciplinary measures that you can take from scripture, from your teachers, from your parents. You have been fighting for over 20 years. What a fight. So now we are here managing change. So just to emphasize, just to remind you what I define as marriage, making a decision and sticking to that particular decision. So when you entered into your marriage, you must have, and it's not too late, but you must have at least had meaningful conversations about what we call non-negotiables. Non-negotiables, meaning this ones I'm not willing to budge on them. This one I'm not willing to compromise, kind of things. So I always encourage in premarital counseling, I always encourage the couple that each and every one of you must have 3 things which you call non-negotiable, meaning this ones I'm not willing to cross the line. I'm not willing to cross the line with these 3 things. And as Bazalwane, there will always be one common one. The one common factor will be salvation. Meaning, before I say I do, you must know that I'm not willing to compromise on salvation. I want to marry somebody who's born again because I am born again. I'm not willing to compromise. Meaning, should we enter into marriage and then years down the line, if you decide that when you don't want to be born again anymore, you are now, it's a breach of promise regarding my conditions for marriage, because I'm marrying you with these conditions. I'm marrying with the condition that you must be born again. I want to live the rest of my life with a born again person. So later in the years, I do not want to see any change or deviation from this particular factor. So each and every person before entering into marriage must have non-negotiables. Obviously, salvation will be the main one because we are within a context of Basel 1. So salvation will be that. Then secondly, it will differ. Secondly, it might be an issue around location. Some people prefer certain locations. Some people can say, look, I'm willing to go with you wherever you want to go, but we must always play around this location. Personally, I don't want to see myself staying in Cape Town or whatever. I don't want to go overseas. I want to be, so location can be, but that is up to you. Remember, what is non-negotiable to you might not mean anything to me. My non-negotiables might be different to yours. So I must have them, and my wife must have similar ones. So then we sit down with my wife and we compare, and then we see, do we agree or we don't agree? And where we don't agree, because remember at that time we are so madly in love. Even if we don't agree, then we compromise. Then we say, okay, I'm willing on the location issues. Okay, if by chance you get a job in Zimbabwe to be CEO, earning with an annual turnover of 32 million, who can say no to that? I will go with you. We stay in Harare or we stay somewhere. That's when we compromise. But the salvation one, I'll advise you never to compromise on that one. That one, don't play with it. It's a non-go area. So all these other things. So we must have had that conversation. Fast forward. Alongside non-negotiables, I'll also encourage expectations, speak about expectations, also speak about aspirations. If you are marrying a matriculant today, a matriculant in 10 years' time might now be a master's degree holder, from a matriculant to a master's degree holder in 10 years' time. So we need to speak about our aspirations, that this is, God willing, this is where we want to go. God willing, this is what we want to go. And also, I'm glad that this platform is mainly for women, even though I know husbands might be online tonight with women, because women are people who are programmed by society to compromise a lot. You are told things like you must marry potential. You don't marry a finished product. You must marry a potential. Sometimes God can bless you. You marry a finished product, but most of the times women go for potential based on the current economic conditions, how income inequalities and how the system generally favors women, if we may speak politically. So speaking, whether that is true or not, the jury is out there. And then now the scales and the tables are turning. And financially, women are more in a better light, or they have potential to be in a better light. So if you married somebody by potential, you married this guy, suppose you're already established, you are a career woman, you have all things locked down, and then all these guys who are on your so-called perceived level, they are not coming, they are not chilling you. Who seems to be a bit lower under your lower than your standards, and then no, you must marry potential. You must not always look for like for like or perfect people. Look for potential. Then you marry a potential person. We are already inside managing change, so you marry a potential. So what will be a potential? Normally, we'll say a potential is somebody who is having a degree, but maybe not yet. A guy who has a degree, but not yet at the particular level career-wise, but is still climbing, still pushing hard to move within levels. Or it can be somebody who is a student, can be a student who's studying and showing dedication to move towards, maybe is a law student, the person will become an admitted attorney later on and maybe open his practice, maybe he's in commerce, he will one day become a CA, or maybe still in medical school, one day will become. So that's potential. That's normally what we call potential. So then when coming to issues of change, here's the issue. Remember, you committed, you said, I do, with intention or with the perception that in 10 years' time, my person will be a medical doctor. In 10 years' time, my person will be an admitted attorney. running his practice. In 10 years' time, my person will be a CA. In 10 years' time, my person will be doing this, my person will be doing that. That's why you are so lovely and excited about marriage. You are willing even to pay for everything. At that time, you are financially strong and you are paying for everything. Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to be too much leaning towards women. It's just because it is their platform. So I will speak from that context. But later on, after 10 years, man has dropped out of university along the way, or men completed and then started somewhere as a clerk somewhere, fought with the supervisor, fought with the manager, or was not pushing enough, got fired, and then changed jobs, chopped and changed. And all 10 years later, the potential guy is still where he was when you guys got married. And you're Msalwane, by the way. You said I do. It's forever and ever. So that's where change comes. So meaning there is change now, even though the person is still the same. But then back then there was potential. Now there's no longer potential. So potential is gone. 10 years later, after 10 years, we accept. We can, when we believe that you can change tomorrow, one day God will be merciful. But after 10 years, you must pray that prayer that God give me what? Give me the serenity to accept things that I cannot change. After 10 years, there's nothing that you can change. If there's been a behavior that has been consistent from day one and now it's 10 years later, accept say there's nothing you can change from there. That's exactly what it is. So the guy with potential now, 10 years later, you cannot still be a guy with potential after 10 years. It's a reality. So now you are in a reality, and then the reality is nothing that you signed up for, but you are married and you are Msalwane. You cannot now divorce, because the whole Bazalwane clan will come on you like brimstone, fire and brimstone, and you don't also want to go to hell because you're going to divorce. Like those, whatever your doctrine is regarding divorce, whatever it is based on your churches and your beliefs, I will not step into that. But we know the cloud that hinges over such kind of changes. So how do you manage such a change? Because potential today does not necessarily mean potential will be fully realized. I think by now we know. That is why when you were a child, you wanted to be a nurse, you wanted to be a doctor, and then later on you changed, you wanted to be an engineer, and then later on you changed, you wanted to become something, and then later on you want to create a YouTube channel, because you are adjusting to reality. That is what change management is all about. Change management is all about adjusting to reality so that your situation can still be favorable to you under different circumstances. That is why businesses and companies which do not have a solid change management plans will die. Like your Nokia. Look at what happened to Nokia 3310 around 2002 or so. 3310 was like heavenly 3310. And then was that BBM company, whatever that BBM company, I forgot it because it doesn't matter now because it also died. So that company that had BBM Messenger came in and kicked out Nokia, and that company with BBM Messenger, it looked like it's something big, and then now it died because of iPhone. So issue is solid change management plan. So did you have a change management plan? So what will the plan entail? The plan will entail techniques and tools that you need to apply to ensure that you remain relevant and the situation remain favorable to you. Hallelujah. So the same applies to marriage. 10 years later, what then? Are you now frustrated? Are you now a depressed wife that I thought I'm marrying a medical doctor. I thought I'm marrying a CA. I thought I'm marrying a lawyer. Can we also throw in spirituality? I thought I was marrying a pastor because the guy that you met who was on fire for God earlier on 10 years back, preaching and being invited everywhere. You guys enjoyed traveling together, wearing to match, and enjoyed being introduced as Mamuruti in your first or second year, third year of marriage. Now the guy decides along the way that, you know what, Tita Buruti is stuck. These things of Buruti, Yamara is not my thing. So you understand that now, whatever that was potential then, when you already saw yourself, plus I think this is how women are graced, you always see the bigger picture. Women, the reason why men need women in life is that women see the bigger picture. Men will have the vision, but the women see the bigger picture of that vision. My vision can just be to be a Murudi of a church, a nice church. My wife's vision can be a Murudi of 10 branches, for example, 10 branches. So women will always multiply the vision. The vision will remain, but women will want to multiply it. So now that guy, I'm doing other things. So how do we manage change? So one of the reasons why there are so many divorces, not only in Christianity, we must dispel that lie that Bazalwane are divorcing in numbers. No. We are talking about marriage in general. The divorce rate is high amongst the married in general, believers or unbelievers, not Bazalwane. There is no there's no solid research that was done that proves that Christians are divorcing. If you want to test this assumption, look at your own local church and ask yourself, in my local church, ever since I joined my local church, how many people are married in this local church? You are likely going to find, for example, 20 are married. So if 20 are married, ever since I joined the church, how many of them got divorced? I can bet with you that it will be less than 3. So if out of 20 marriages, only less than 3 got divorced. So this notion that Bazalwane are divorcing in a high rate, it's a lie. It's from the pit of hell, trying to discourage believers from getting married, trying to destabilize marriages. So we are back to managing change in marriages. So one must have a plan on how to manage change. The issue is that as much as your dream of becoming a policeman, a policewoman changed over the years up until you wanted to become a YouTuber, it means you adjusted to reality. So why can't we apply the same thinking to marriage? We need to adjust to reality. We must adjust to reality. The potential medical doctor that I wanted to marry, things didn't work out with his educational path. For whatever reason, it does not matter. Whether the person was lazy, did not study enough, it does not matter. It does not. What matters is that now he's no longer on that path, and the circumstances don't allow him to pursue that particular path. We must adjust to the new reality. And remember, it is not an isolated decision that must be made. It must be a joint decision, meaning your communication should have been consistent over the years. So we must adjust to the reality. You'll now understand why I define marriage as a decision more than feelings, more than butterflies, more than chemistry, more than complementing one another. You'll now see why it's a decision. Because emotions die sometimes. Emotions are just going to die. If you dreamt of being Mrs. Dr. Neo Legodi, and then now later on, the title doctor and Neo are like 2 worlds apart. It's either you are going to kill yourself with depression, or you are going to adjust to reality and enjoy the rest of your life with me together forever and ever. So you must adjust to reality. And how do we adjust to reality? We must have a meaningful conversation about our trajectory as a couple. Meaning there must be phases. After marriage, at least after 30 years, it's a new phase. After 30 years, maybe a child or 2 are born at that particular time, is a new phase. Let's have conversation of where we want to go and where we want to go. Just like anything in life, you wanted to become a doctor even when you were single, but here you are a YouTuber, meaning that principle must apply to everything. That even what we plan for family does not necessarily mean it will all come to pass. And sometimes, or most of the times, it's not even the devil who has intervened. Circumstances just did not favor whatever we wanted to do. Whether we contend in prayer, we pray, we fast, we know, man. We are not talking to kids here. We're talking about adults. We know that there are so many things that you prayed for and they never came to pass, right? That does not mean the devil intervened or whatever. Unless if your theology is very much shaky, you'll assume every time you don't get your way is because the devil intervened. That is wrong theology. That is the theology that is bringing depression amongst churches. That is the theology that is raising false prophets, because people believe if I can follow a false prophet, all my things will always be right. It's a lie from the pit of hell. So we are back to this, to marriage. On the subject of marriage, let's adjust to reality. We need to manage change by adjusting to reality, but there must be communication between the two. As long as you guys have established I use three normally as a template for marriage counseling. As long as you have established non-negotiables, as long as my person does not backslide and decide to over active in salvation, he wants to do other things. As long as the person does not touch that, as long as the person does not touch my second non-negotiable, as long as the person does not touch my third non-negotiable, then any other things we need to adjust, Vasalwan. We must adjust reality. Sometimes I've seen couples piling stress and depression upon one another because of social media. You know how we see people graduating and it's so nice, and couples, today is the wife, next after 6 months is the husband. It's so nice, the pictures on the walls. We need to be realistic. You might be might not be education academic friendly. You might marry a very loving husband, but who is just not strong academically. So if your expectation will be trying to force the poor guy to go and register for UNISA, you are piling pressure and hot coals upon your own head. UNISA is not a child's play. And if somebody has never been strong academically from primary, high school level, it's difficult. It's going to be difficult when we're filtering in the issue of marriage, relationships, and kids, and so forth, and you still want the person to study for a degree. You understand? So sometimes let us adjust the reality. Know your limits. Bazalwani are the only people on earth who don't know their limits, and we bless the Lord for that. Because the Bible says, Jerusalem shall be a city without walls. Jerusalem shall be a city without boundaries. We bless the Lord for the spiritual connotations to it. But that also we must apply wisdom. The Bible says in Luke chapter 2, verse 22, Jesus increased in stature and wisdom. Increased in stature and wisdom, then gain in favor with God and men. So as we grow up, we must also increase in wisdom. There are certain battles that we are not supposed to be fighting. Jesus in Luke chapter 24 says, Luke chapter 14 rather, he says, if you are going to fight against a king, please sit down first and check with your own capacity if you can be able to defeat that particular king. If you see that you can't defeat that particular king, send apologies before the fight could begin. So you can solve so many fights by sending apologies ahead, or by analyzing your strength, the SWOT analysis. So there are certain things, Bazalwani, that we need to do, like SWOT analysis. If my person, we can see that, academic is not your strength, lad. Let's think about something, man. What can you do? Are you maybe a musician? Yana? Let's think about pushing you, getting an album. Are you doing something with your hands? Let's push. Or you are good with electronics. Let's push to have you something whereby you fix things. Let's work on that. Let's build that particular business. Instead of, because everyone is having their husbands taking photos to academic, we are not the same. So we need to adjust. So in change management is all about adjust. And it becomes a complex issue when dealing with Bazalwan, because they believe they deserve so much better. That's Bazalwan. They believe I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I believe this platform is for realistic people. I'm a pastor. I believe in that verse wholeheartedly. Remember the person who wrote, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Paul, in the context of that particular chapter, he says before he can say, I can do all things through Christ. In that chapter, he says, I know how to live without food. I know how to live in lack. I also know how to live in plenty. So because of that, I can do all things. So I can do all things in that context. It does not mean I can do miracles. I can do supernatural. It simply means I can live with, I can also live without. That is what the context of the verse is all about. But because, Bazalwan, we rather motivation, which is not biblical, and we wonder why we are depressed, because we run with wrong interpretations of scriptures, and then we promise people things, and then things don't happen, and then we get depressed because we promise Bazalwan, or that's nothing, I can do all things through Christ. No, that verse simply means I can do without, I can also do with, meaning I can do with living in a place of lack, I can also do with living in a place of plenty. That's what the verse says. So unless if you are wrongly, if you are not, your doctrine is not right, you are also going to pile pressure. People with wrong doctrine or with wrong scripture interpretation end up being the most depressed Bazalwan you can ever find. Today they are so on fire. They even post on Facebook and says, I trust God that this I will do. and then after a week or two, you're embarrassed because you blew your own horn. Not everyone has the faith of Pastor Koketso of Muso Church. Pastor Koketso's students said they'll raise 7 million within a month, and by God's grace, they raised 7 million. Not everyone has that particular faith. We need to understand it. Not everyone has that particular faith. And also, not everyone was there with Pastor Koketso when he concluded to come with that particular challenge. Not everyone has the same circumstances and environments around him that influenced him to mention that particular confession. So if you are going to, my father in ministry likes to say, or used to say 20 years back, he used to say, you can copy the method, but you can't copy the results. You can copy the method, but you can't copy the results. Why? Because our context will differ. Our context will differ. Let me move away. We are not gossiping, by the way. Murutu Koketso's testimony is online, it's public, so it's not gossip. And I trust that you not say, yeah, Murutu Raragabat. So I'm back on marriages. Change. Let's do proper change management in our marriages. Let's adjust. As long as you have established your non-negotiable. So what will I conclude with? This will be my conclusion for you. If you have never done the exercise of setting non-negotiables in your marriage, revisit that particular exercise. I know you might have been married for 15 years, 20 years now, you can still do that exercise. Then that will help you to manage change. Because if you have at least minimum 3 things which you're saying, we are not willing to cross the line here. Any other thing, love, or any other thing, baby, we are going to mention, we are going to manage. As long as we have established that these 3 things, we are not going to cross the line with them. Any other thing we can manage. If you lose your job, we can manage it because it has never been a non-negotiable. If you drop out of school, we can manage because it has never been a non-negotiable. So we are able to manage that. We are able to adjust. We can adjust our appetites and our consumption, our spending. We can adjust based on circumstances. The economy in South Africa is just ridiculous now. We can adjust. We can adjust as long as we are not touching on non-negotiables. But if you have never established non-negotiables, it becomes a problem that what will you be? Every other thing is going to shake your marriage. I'm telling you, Bazaram, I sit down with couples almost every other day, sometimes online, and the issues that people divorce with these days are shocking. I don't want to trivialize people's sufferings. I don't want to seem like I do not care and forgot the term, English. So the reality is that sometimes I listen to people's reasons why they want to divorce, and I'm thinking, we are in a strange generation. But the solution is that let's have non-negotiables. As long as those 3 things which we spoke about, yours can be 5, yours can be 2, but don't make a long list because don't be ridiculous. Just be realistic. That's why I always recommend minimum 3. As long as those 3 are not touched, Mabula and I will remain standing. As long as the 3 things are not touched, Mabula and I must remain standing because non-negotiables are not touched. Then the problem is when non-negotiables are touched, then we see, can we restore? If we can't restore, then can we adjust? As long as the one thing, Bazalwane, you have salvation, you're not. No, that one is not, you can't debate the issue of salvation. We can't start as born again and then 5 years in marriage, you are no longer born again. That one, if we are going to accommodate it, you have just signed a lifetime contract of stress, of trauma, of all these things. That one must be a no-go area. That one must remain resolute until. Otherwise, this is my short summary about managing change. There are various areas within marriage which are problematic when coming to change. Number 1 will be the issue of also finances. The issue of finances. If we married under a certain tax bracket, and then 10 years later, we are no longer in that bracket, that can be problematic. So we need to manage that particular change. We need to come up with ways on how to manage that change. Even if it means let's downgrade. The issue is social media. I can tell you, if we do not have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we are going to have less divorces in the country or in the world. I can assure you. I don't want to spill things. Baruti, we are people of secrets. But I can assure you, being somebody who regularly counsels people, The people that you envy on social media are not necessarily loaded as you think. They are not loaded financially as you think. Remember, when we do a thorough counseling and sit down with them, and then we go and analyze their finances, we realize that these people are not as loaded as they are. But we're not there. You are crying. You are pressurizing your wife. You are pressurizing your husband. You want to go on non-stop vacations, expensive vacations, not only to find that you are competing with somebody who's actually lying. Competing with a lie is painful, can kill your marriage because you're competing with somebody who's not true. So finances can be area that needs finances to change. Today, I can marry a millionaire, and then in 10 years' time, that millionaire can be a broke guy or a broke woman who has nothing to their name, and I have to carry the burden of finances around them. So we need to manage that particular change. We need to adjust. Another one, which is awkward, can also be physical appearance. I might have married a hunk today of 6-pack, or I might have married a lady of size 28 or size 20. I don't know what are the sizes, portable sizes for ladies. I don't know, whichever sizes you are. But 10 years later, you might be shocked. There's a movie called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I always laugh when I teach and say, every human being will go through those stages, the good, the bad, and the ugly, So 10 years later, you might either be still in the good or the bad or in the ugly. So will we be able to manage that particular change, And also remember all these things that, hey, this person was a good guy, but he changed. She was a good woman. She just changed. It's a lie. It's a lie. That one is a lie. If you don't want to accept it, it's fine. But I'm thinking this platform is for being realistic. It's a lie. People don't change. People just reveal who they are. The thing is, when we are excited, when we are courting, when we are jolling, when we are dating, we agree to everything. We don't use our heads. So someone has showed you the signs even before you get married that actually I have a potential of being a womanizer. The way he speaks about women, the way she speaks about men back then. But because you are so excited that he or she chose you, you just ignored the red flags. 10 years later, you are saying, Murudu, hey, he just changed. Ever since he got that job, he changed. Ever since she got that promotion, she changed. No, you ignored the signs. So as long as we are not touching the non-negotiables, issues like infidelity, that should be a strong non-negotiable that, look, I'm not going to tolerate infidelity. So as long as it's not touching that, let's adjust. But this presentation, I think I will stop it here due to time. I will stop it here. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Murudu. Yeah, the change management and stuff. But then, if your partner changed to certain extent, like each and everything. Whatever argument you are going through, and then whatever things that agree assurance from Kohavo, and then that thing your marriage is starting to fade away. So that type of change, now I didn't expect it. So how can I do such a change, for example?
All right. Thank you. Look, when coming to that, I wrote. There's a chapter that in my book, Was the Pens, which is called Family Tied Guy. Family Tied Guy is the type of husband. Family tied guy. So in that book, in that chapter, what I'm talking about is that before you get married, have conversations around family attachments. Have questions about family attachment. We differ. We are coming from different backgrounds. Some people they are raised from a solid family background, whereby after you graduate, after you get your own job, whatever, you do whatever you want with your own money. We are not expecting anything because we are okay at home. We raised you to be independent because we are okay. But other people, you know that they scramble to get you to varsity. For instance, there was NSFAS, there was aunt who borrowed this, there was whoever who did this. As a result, after graduation, you will already know that I still need to start by building a house for my parents. I still need to take my 3 siblings to school. So if we are, before you said I do, before you guys decided on getting married, when you are dating someone, if you do not have the conversation about family attachments and family commitments, it's a serious red flag. It's going to be problematic, that one. I'm saying this because based on your question, your question is that the person changed later on. Before, I assume it was okay, but later the person changed and started now being too dependent upon family opinions. So if we had that conversation about family attachments before we got married, it becomes easier. Then the moment the person start to go and say, I want to consult, start to consult family, you will say, no, that's a red flag. We agreed that we asked about family attachments, and this is what we all said. So why would you now seek opinion from somebody outside the two of us? I mean, if I were to give an example between me and my wife, we have always established that we solve our own problems. We solve our own problems. We don't go to families. We can speak to our friends here and there, but not necessarily go to families whereby they must approve everything. So as a result, so many years later in marriage, our family members from both sides, they know their limits and their boundaries. They never get into what we are doing as a couple. So, but if we never had such conversation, it becomes a problem. But fast forward, you find yourself in that situation, then what must happen now? There's no easier way to deal with it except conversations. And unfortunately, when we are now dealing with an after effect, it means our approach must also be very different. The approach must be different because the approach must not sound like accusation. The approach must not sound like accusation, must not sound like control. You're trying to control me. You don't want me to talk to my parents anymore. You don't want me to talk to my siblings. You're trying to control me. So the approach, that's where we need the wisdom of the Lord on how to have a better approach on how we deal with that conversation. But you need the conversation. The only way out is prayer and conversation. Prayer alone is not going to solve it. Prayer plus conversation is important. We need to converse on that issue. And then we say, look, we need to set boundaries. When coming to family matters or our family affair, decision makers is you and me, no one else. No one should influence our decisions. Because like I said, marriage is a decision and a decision to stick with that decision. So it rests with us, it falls with us. So outside people, we need also to define what is family. When I define family, I define my wife and kids. That's my family. They are my family. Then there's my parents and my siblings, 4 of my siblings. I love them too. But when I define family, is my wife and my kids. That's family. So black people, Ratao family, 1,000 people, everyone is family. I know we differ, but try to limit that. Because if you are having a lot of voices that are speaking to your life, or there are a lot of responsibilities, they are going to affect your marriage. They are going to affect your marriage. Don't isolate people, but build boundaries. Build them sooner. If you have not done it, try to introduce them carefully with wisdom without people feeling like you're cutting them off. Yeah, so my sister, please start the conversation. Okay, if there's another question.
Thank you so much. I saw there was a hand. Okay, Ntebo. You can unmute.
Good evening, Murti, and good evening to everyone else. I just want to ask, I think maybe I failed to put it in words the way it is in my head, but I hope understood. But what I want to ask is, how do we draw the line, like prior to marriage, how do we draw the line between red flags and maybe character flaws? Like, for example, say a person tidy, whereas it could be that the person was never taught to be clean of a thing. How do we then say this is a red, this is not it? And also, like, managing red flags, knowing red flags, because I think everybody has them. in terms of also how do we say these are red flags, and also it's coming to a space where I'm not expecting literal perfection from a person.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I got you. Thank you so much. I got you. I always differentiate between personality and character. We need to differentiate between the two, between personality and character. Personality never changes. 10 years later, the person that you met, their personality will still be the same. It never changes. But character can be changed. That is why when we get born again, if you got born again very late in life, it means you had a certain character. Some were drunkards, some were smokers, some were in sexual immorality, and then after being born again, we were able to adjust and then started living a particular life because a character can be changed. But personality cannot be changed. Let me give an example. If you are a humorous person before you got born again, even after salvation, you will still be humorous. The only things that you will change, what you laugh about, what you speak about. If you are a loud person before getting born again, even after being born again, you continue to be a loud person. If you are a harsh person, if you hate people, personality, you just don't like people around you, those things never change. Then that's where we come with differentiating between a red flag and character flaws. A red flag must be around personality. For instance, for guys, let's speak because this platform is suitable wife. Let's give you to women. For instance, you fall in love with this brother in the Lord, and then you think this guy, look, I just love this guy. I think we can have a future and a beautiful life together. And then it's okay, Liana, he loves you too. You can tell the guy is madly in love with you. Then during the period whereby you're still getting to know each other and so forth, you see how he treats people except you. How he treats people outside, how he talks about his colleagues at work, how he talks about family members, how he talks about friends, how on the road when you meet strangers, how he reacts. You can tell that this guy, man, a lot of anger, man. There's like a lot of anger in this particular person, or the way he deals with people, man. He's too harsh, gentle. You see it, but when he deals with you, my God, he's an angel. And love language, your love language, gifts, receiving gifts. So he's buying them left and right. You're thinking, oh, here, pop. The issue is that personality is going to linger on for the rest of your lives. 10 years later, the day Ali angry at you or raises his hand towards you, it might be a shock to you because for 10 years he has never done it. But it's not necessarily a shock. It was a red flag back then. But because you were not the victim back then, you were okay with it. You understand? That one is difficult. So personality, we accept it. That's when you must choose whether you accept or you reject it. If you reject it, you don't marry the person. If you accept it, you are simply saying, I'm willing to live with it. And then character flaws, no. Character, the Lord changes. The Lord changes. We partners, we teach each other. There are things that my wife taught me. There are things that I taught her also. So with character, we can teach, but not with personality. Personality, we are born unprovoked. We are born character, or sometimes bad habit, whatever. If you are talking about being untidy, we can change that, man. Somebody who's untidy, all that they need is to see that what they're doing is wrong, and we show them the right way to do it, and also the benefits of living in a healthy and hygienic place. And then over the years, they adapt to it because they see you are consistent in it. But personality, you can't change it. Ugaba murutu anyala a woman she hardly laughs with anyone, and you dear Mamruti. Then 5 years later, Greg division, Mamruti doesn't like people. Vice versa, the guy the same way. So we need to differentiate between personality and character. Character we can change along the way, but personality, we can never change it. So yeah, I think that's where it is. The red flags, there must be on personality of a person because we can't change it. But with character, God is God. Yes. Thank you.